Hi everyone. I think we're just gonna wait a couple more minutes um, for some more people to trickle in and onto this live. So I hope you can all hear me okay. Oh, hi Sophia. So nice that you're here. Um, so I guess we can get started then. I hope everyone can hear me. Um, so this is Ellen here. So I'm hoping that you're all doing well and that your week is off to a good start. So today we'll be talking about how to create a bedtime routine that works. So I know many of you watching have little ones of all ages and maybe some not so little ones. So I'll try to provide information that's as broad as possible, okay? But before we get started, I just want to quickly give some promo to my colleague, Veronique, who will be hosting a live tomorrow night right here at 7 p.m. about how to create a morning routine that works. So I strongly recommend that you go watch Veronique's live tomorrow as well. And if you watch both of ours, then you'll literally be covered from sunset to sunrise. So yes, please go check out her live as well. But tonight we'll be talking first about why sleep is so important, and then we'll be talking about how to set your child up for a good night's sleep, both through their bedtime routine and even things to bear in mind throughout the day. And at the end, we'll have a fun activity where I'll help all of you create your own personalized lullaby for your child. Ah, hi, Veronique. Um, and we'll finish off by talking about some sleep-related situations in which you should take your child to a doctor, okay? So there's quite a few things that I want to get through today, but sleep is something that's super important for your health, so I hope that you'll learn something new today. So, hi, Nat. So as always, please leave your questions for me in the comments at any point. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get back to them tonight, but I'll be checking back over the next few days. And I'll be looking through the comments, so I'll make sure to answer all of your questions. So let's first start off with why sleep is important, especially for your little ones. But before we get to that, let's talk about how much sleep your child actually needs every night. So I'm hoping for some audience participation here. Can anyone tell me how much sleep an infant who is 4 to 12 months old should get every day? So you can just put it in the comments. Any guesses? So again, how much sleep should an infant get every day? I'll just wait a couple more seconds. 11 hours. Good guess, Nat. Honestly, very close. Um, so it turns out actually that infants who are 4 to 12 months old need around 12 to 16 hours every single day, and that includes naps. So oftentimes with infants, they won't necessarily follow the same sort of sleep schedule that an adult would. They kind of just nap throughout the day, and that should add up to 12 to 16 hours. Um, and 11 hours or 11 to 14 hours is actually how much sleep children aged 1 to 2 years old should get. Honestly, it's kind of tough. I'm not gonna lie. I had to do my own research for this too. Um, but yes, so children ages 1 to 2 years old need 11 to 12 hours, including naps. So, Nat, do you think you know how much sleep preschoolers or children aged 3 to 5 years old should get every day? So again, infants was 12 to 16 hours. 1 to 2 year olds was 11 to 14 hours. So, what about preschoolers? Oof. Not quite. Preschoolers need 10 to 13 hours, including naps. And age children or children aged 6 to 12 years old need 9 to 12 hours. And lastly, youth, so children aged 13 to 18 years old, need 8 to 10 um, hours a night. You're right, Nat. So 8 hours is kind of the standard for adults. Um, so yes, thanks for participating, everyone. So these are all recommendations taken directly from CHEO, or the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. So you'll notice that, as Nat said, like as your child gets older, they need less sleep. But notice that even at the age of 18, your child should still be getting 8 to 10 hours. Okay, so that's quite a bit of sleep, right? That your child needs every night. So why exactly do they need to sleep that much every single night? Well, I don't need to remind you at all of the fact that we know that sleep is restorative, right? But especially for children, we know that from birth, their well being and their development depends heavily on them getting enough sleep relative to their age and their activity levels. So, a resource that I found from Sick Kids tells us that children who consistently get a good night's of sleep show more creativity, better concentration and problem solving, better decision making, better learning and memory, higher energy levels throughout the day, and even better interpersonal skills. So, on the other hand, children who don't get enough sleep experience a variety of symptoms across all aspects of health, physical, cognitive, and emotional. So, you might find that they're really difficult to awaken in the morning. They might fall asleep after being woken up. Um, they may want to have unhealthy stimulants like caffeine and excess sugar throughout the day, and they might complain of being tired or wanting to nap, even if it means missing out on fun activities that they normally enjoy. And this is really important because this drowsiness and this decreased motivation to take part in regular activities just because of how tired they are, this could actually cause them in turn to be less active and more sedentary. And we all know how important physical activity is for our health, right? So, this is just one of the reasons why sleep is so important. Mentally, a child who is sleep deprived might show lack of interest, motivation, and attention for everyday tasks. And they might become forgetful and have a hard time learning. And they might actually show ADHD like symptoms. And they might even develop blurry vision. And emotionally, they might be more moody, irritable, impulsive, and stressed. Okay, so that's why sleep is so, so important for your child. So now that we've discussed that, we can move on to, figuring out how to set your child up for a good night's sleep. And this actually starts right from the morning when they wake up. So these are all tips, again, provided in a document that I found from CHEO, and I can put that resource and a bunch of other resources in the comments later for your reference. But yes, so in the morning, it's not only important for your child to get the same amount of sleep each night, but it's also important for them to go to bed and to wake up at the same time every single day. So, what I mean is that it's not ideal if your child is going to bed at 8 p.m. and then waking up at 8 a.m. one day, and then going to bed at 11 p.m. and then waking up at 11 a.m. the next day. So really try to make sure that their wake up time remains the same day to day, even on weekends. So if your child tells you that they really feel the need to sleep in on weekends, they're so tired if they don't sleep in, try to encourage them to go to bed earlier on weekdays so that they don't feel the need to compensate for their lack of sleep throughout the week by sleeping more on weekends. Okay, so that's our morning covered. So now we can discuss what you can do during the day to ensure a good night's sleep. So before I share my own tips, does anyone watching have their own suggestions for things that you can do throughout the day to make sure that your child will get a good night's sleep that night? You can just pop them in the comments below, and yeah, I'll wait for 30 seconds or so. That's a really good point, Nat. That's actually one of the things I'm going to talk about. Exercise, definitely. So I'll move on, and yes, Vivek, you know what? That's actually my first point. You guys read my mind. So yes, one of the most important things you can do is make sure that your child gets at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity every day. Now, this is just, good for your child's general health and well-being, but getting enough physical activity every day is also really important for good quality sleep. So some ways to reach those daily 60 minutes would be to build it into your routine as a family. So, for example, going for daily family walks, biking or cross-country skiing, or skating after dinner, or playing sports like road hockey or soccer on your local field. So just really try to aim for those 60 minutes of good exercise every day. But just make sure to avoid any physical activity starting in the early evening, because being active too late in the day can actually make it harder for your child to calm down and to fall asleep. Okay. In addition, this daily physical activity should also ideally be outdoors, because it's recommended that your child spend at least 1.5 hours outside during daylight hours, because the sunlight actually helps to regulate their internal clock, and it helps their body to establish a healthy routine of wakefulness and sleepiness. So exercise and be outside, and ideally exercise outside. There are also important things that you should keep in mind when it comes to nutrition. So try to limit processed foods and excess sugar, as this can lead to lower quality sleep. And avoid caffeine and energy drinks, especially in the afternoon or the evening. And you should also try to limit how often your child naps, because this can take away from the quality of their sleep later that night. Okay? And lastly, make sure to connect with your child. If you and your child have a strong, secure, loving relationship, then they will feel safe at home. And this in turn will make it easier for them to fall asleep. And this also opens the door more easily for productive conversations about the issues and the stressors in their life. And if your child feels like that they can talk about their emotions and stressors with you, then they will feel less tense and they'll carry less stress and anxiety with them. And this will also contribute to better sleep. And if you do notice that your child is having some sleep-related issues, try to bring up the topic with them in a way that's like non-confrontational. Instead, try to come from like a collaborative angle, because the truth is, you want to work with them to figure out a sleep routine that'll work, right? So Ask them if they'd like your advice or if they'd rather you just listen to them and validate them and empathize with them. And then work together to come up with ways to solve their sleep issues. It's important to note though that this conversation, if you're talking about, their sleep related issues, it has to also include boundary setting. So make sure that your child understands that if their ideas don't really seem to be improving their sleep and they're still feeling drowsy and they're falling asleep throughout the day, then you as a parent might have to step in a bit more. Okay? So, your child woke up at a consistent time, they exercised during the day, spent time outside, they ate healthy, didn't have caffeine or sugary energy drinks, they didn't nap, and now it's nighttime. And they're tired and they're ready for bed. So, again, before I share my own recommendations, does anyone want to share what has worked for them to promote a good night's sleep, either for yourselves or for your children? And again, this is something specific to, nighttime, maybe a nighttime routine, something to keep in mind about your environment when you're falling asleep. Any suggestions are welcome. Yes, Veganik, very good point. Yes, lullaby music, exactly. Yeah, so again, you guys are reading my mind. Those are points that I'm going to be talking about. Um, but yes, something that I want to quickly talk about first. A lot of these things are like environmental factors. And one of the most important points that I want to talk about is to have your child use their bed only for sleep. So I know, Veronique, you mentioned reading before bed, which is something that I used to do all the time, and it definitely helps to fall asleep. But bear in mind that if your child reads or uses their computer or devices, or if they do their homework, etc., if they do all of that in their bed, then they will start to associate those like stimulating activities with their bed. So when it comes time to actually having to fall asleep, they'll struggle with that because they wouldn't have associated their bed with relaxation and sleeping. So another important factor that Veronique alluded to is reducing blue light exposure. So, blue light is a term that's gotten much more popular over the past few years, but what it really is just a certain wavelength of light. And we're commonly exposed to blue light through sunlight as well as our electronic devices like TVs, phones, tablets, etc. And blue light isn't all that bad. During the day, it's actually beneficial in promoting wakefulness. At the same time, it also suppresses sleep. So this means that blue light exposure, as your child is going to bed, can actually limit their ability to fall asleep. So it's important to reduce your child's exposure to blue light, like for the 1 to 2 hours before bed. So this can look like changing their light bulbs to more like red orangey LED lights, avoiding screens like TVs, gaming consoles, phones, and tablets in their bedrooms, and asking them to stop using their devices a couple hours before bed and have them be charging in a separate room. As well, if their blinds or curtains are sort of sheer and like they let the light in, then you can consider switching them out for some more opaque ones that block out the sunlight. And some children might even find eye masks or sleep masks to be helpful. Okay. So there are other environmental factors to consider as well. You can experiment with a quiet environment versus one with some background noise, like a quiet fan or some white noise. Like some children do better and fall asleep more easily with one or the other. Same thing with a nightlight. Some children, one of the big factors that's detracting from their sleep is the fear of the dark. So they might feel safer with a bit of light, and that will help them to fall asleep, while some children will do better with complete darkness. You might also find weighted blankets to be helpful. Just make sure that if you go for a weighted blanket, that you buy one that's specifically for your child's weight, because if it's too heavy, it might not actually be safe. Another thing to consider is keeping pets out of the bed. I know it can be so tempting to let your dog or your cat like sleep with your child at night. And your child might say that it's actually comforting and helping them sleep, but studies show that this can actually disturb their sleep, unfortunately. So you might want to consider having your pet sleep in a different room at night, or even like in your child's room, but just on the floor, just not in their own bed. As well, if your child is struggling to fall asleep, considering lowering their room temperature or your house temperature just a bit. The science behind this is that our body temperature naturally decreases as we fall asleep. So having like a slightly cooler room temperature can in turn help promote sleep. So this doesn't mean that you should turn the temperature all the way down to like 15 degrees, but somewhere around 18 and 21 degrees Celsius should be enough to help. And lastly, as we spoke about earlier, an important factor in how easily a child falls asleep is how safe and comfortable they feel. So if it seems like the root of their sleep issues is that they start to feel anxious when you aren't in the room with them, consider introducing a comfort object like a stuffed animal or a blanket. And when you hug or cuddle your child goodnight, you can do so with the stuffy or the blanket. And this will help your child create like positive associations and feelings of safety and comfort with that object. And that also might help them fall asleep. Okay. And lastly, you can also consider implementing a bedtime routine. So having, a predictable sequence of steps for your child that leads up to their bedtime can help them wind down and fall asleep more easily. So for older children, their routine can include quietly chatting with you about their day and then some flexible, like quiet alone time before turning off the lights. For younger children, maybe an hour before bed, you can start with a warm bath and brushing their teeth, and make sure that they go to the bathroom before getting into bed, as this will reduce the chances of bedwetting or having to get up in the middle of the night. You might also consider helping them associate like a calming smell with bedtime in their bedroom. So you could put a few drops of lavender oil on your child's pillow before they get into bed. And then you can tuck them in, dim the lights, read them a bedtime story, sing them a lullaby, as Nat mentioned, and then hug them, and then cuddle them, and then you can turn off the lights. So a bedtime routine doesn't have to be super elaborate. And it's also something that you and your child should come up with and build together. And that goes for, all the advice that I've given so far. Like before doing all of these things, like changing the temperature, adding an eye mask, a weighted blanket, like you should talk to your child about how they feel about those ideas so that you can work together towards a bedtime routine that both you and they are happy about. So, I know we've talked a little bit about lullabies, so I just want to guide all of the parents watching through a quick reflective activity right now that will hopefully help you write your own personalized lullaby for your child. So lullabies are a fantastic way to connect with your baby or your young child, to express to them how much you love them and strengthen the sense of safety and security that they have with you. And as we spoke about 2 weeks ago in my live about music, lullabies also help with early literacy. So I'm hoping to help you brainstorm and come up with some inspiration for a lullaby that is uniquely yours and your child's. So you definitely don't have to share this in the comments at all. Like, it's a very personal thing, but I hope that you're able to like grab a pen and a piece of paper, um, and first write down your child's name and any nicknames that you have for them. So I'll just give you a couple seconds to do that. And next, write down words that you feel describe your child, as well as feelings that you'd like to express to them, like love or affection or anything else. And then write down some of the things that you love doing with your child, like playing with toys, or going for walks, or going to the park. So hopefully you now have a list of words or phrases for inspiration, um, and then you can kind of put them all together, try to find rhymes between them, and then you can set them against like a simple tune. So for example, Frère Jacques is a really soothing melody that you could sing your lyrics to. Um, Five Little Ducks is another really nice one too. Or you could even use a traditional, like cultural melody that has personal meaning to you. I think that'd be lovely as well. Um, but yes, I hope that this gave you some inspiration for writing your own lullaby for your child. It can be really short and sweet and simple. And don't worry if you think that you're a bad singer. You know, like research has shown us that babies like hearing their parents' voice more than anything else. So they'll love your voice regardless of how you sound. So I just have a couple more minutes here. I just wanted to quickly finish off with when to see a doctor about your child's sleep. So really disrupted sleep can signal a deeper underlying health issue, whether it be physical or mental. So just keep an eye out for the following things, okay? So for younger children, if your child has persistent or loud snoring, or pauses or problems with breathing while they're sleeping, that's a good reason to see their doctor. If they're irritable, hyperactive, inattentive, or sleepy during the day, if they're super anxious about being away from you at night, if they sleepwalk, or if they have frequent nightmares or terrors, if they've developed any new problem with their sleep, then please go see a doctor. Okay? And for school-age children, go to the doctor if their teacher tells you that your child's tired, even if you feel like they've gotten enough sleep the night before, or if they've developed new night terrors, or if they started sleepwalking, and they hadn't ever done that before the age of 6 years old, if they still need regular naps, and again, if they experience loud snoring or pauses in breathing or restlessness at night. So all of these things are red flags that I'd recommend going to see a doctor about if you notice any of them. So that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this live and that you learned something new. And hopefully you maybe discovered some new tips to help your child sleep. You know, it's something that's so foundational for health and development, so I really hope this was helpful. Again, please post any questions that you might have in the comment section, and I'll get back to you in the next few days. And as well, I'll just be posting some resources in the comments right now that are fantastic resources about sleep in case you want to read a bit more. So I'll be back in a few weeks to talk about free play and how to encourage it. And in the meantime, thank you so much for coming and have a lovely night. Take care, everyone.